Hey, everybody. Hope you guys are well today. And it is October 29th. So, October 29th, we're getting ready for another devotion in Second Corinthians chapter 8, a late night for me. Got a chance to go see some friends at a show out here in town, a concert, which was great. Had many wonderful conversations. Man, it was just unbelievably sweet time. And God, good, rich conversations about real things, meaningful things, especially things like God and Jesus. And so that's, man, always the best. So my name's Beau, and I am from Southern California, have a musical background. A lot of music in my life, growing up, a lot of guitar playing, and I've been fortunate to grow up in a wonderful era of music in Southern California. And I got a chance to really see a band actually from not only my hometown in Southern California with friends of mine growing up in them, but I got a chance to see a band from New York and kind of the New York hardcore scene from back in the 80s that I've seen before, but really, man, just fun to see those East Coast folk, people from Jersey, people from New York, people from Boston, and just the vibe that they bring to. So really fun. But anyway, I ended up reading the Bible when I was around 17, 18 years old. And lo and behold, fell in love with the God of the Bible. So that's why I do devotions the way I do them and just going through the Bible. So welcome. Hey, let's get into it. Chapter 8 of Second Corinthians. You could always check out my archives at my YouTube channel or just go to beauwillette.com. It's my catch-all site. Now it says here, now I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, that God in his kindness has done what God has done through the churches of Macedonia. So it's kind of cool. You see something. It's God doing things. Sometimes we wonder if God's doing things, but I want you to see how God is doing things or how it's defined in Second Corinthians chapter 8. Sometimes we think of God doing things, and like before I even, knew a Christian in my life, I would think of like some miraculous thing, like something had to happen in the stars. Or maybe like, just fire burst in the air, some kind of special thing, and that's what I would think of as like the move of the deity of God. But I want you to see how it's different here. It's actually through the lives of people. So it talks about God being kind, right? And that God in his kindness has done through the churches of Macedonia. So there is a visible sign of the kindness of God in the kindness of the church of Macedonia. Now, Paul's writing to a church in Greece, Corinth, but he's talking about now the churches in Macedonia to them, and about how kind they've been. It's already convicting enough, right? Is my fellowship, the fellowship I am a part of, is there any kindness in it? Is there any acts of kindness that are done, as a fellowship? It's very, very cool to think of that. What kind of fellowship is it? Is it kind? And is it made up of kind people? Now it says they are being tested by many troubles, meaning the Macedonian church, and they are very poor. And they also are filled with abundant joy, which has overflowed in rich generosity. Now this is cool. It says the Macedonian church has many troubles, meaning they're going through a lot of difficulty, just trials. And it says, but they are also very poor. Now, it's interesting that, myself personally, I'm part of a fellowship that is in it's in the O5, meaning it's in the place where the fellowship is located. The area on the map is not a rich area per se. It's not that there isn't some nice, wealthy homes in the mountains, in the hills, because there are. But we're not in the hills. We're right off the freeway. And we're right off the freeway, right where the wash is. And we're right there, right in that neck of the woods of the O5 where, it's not the most, affluent place in the world. It's always been a fellowship of, just, regular people. It's not a wealthy demographic. It's not, we're going to start a church and it's going to be in a wealthy area and everybody who comes is going to be wealthy and it's just going to be a very rich financial fellowship. I guess you can do that and start a church where it's going to be, taken care of financially, but that's not this church. This church, sometimes we've not known if we're going to be able to go anymore, and there's a trusting of God, every week of, hey, what's happening, because it's just not a wealthy fellowship, so I can relate to that. But they are also filled with what? Abundant joy. Isn't that amazing? That even though the church doesn't have much, they have an incredible joy in their heart. And I think all of us have experienced this before in the lives of people, where some people don't have much at all. You might go to a country where there's not, the affluence that we have in the United States of America. But yet you sense a much more joyful culture, a culture and families that are much more tight-knit and much more concerned about the right things than us that tend to be very, scatterbrained. We tend to focus on things that really aren't really shouldn't be focused on that much, And so you see that this church had an abundant joy even in their poverty. It says, which has overflowed, their joy has overflowed in rich giving. Wow. Isn't that amazing? It's like what flowed out of them in their poverty? Joy. Why? Because they were just so happy at the wonderful kindness of God. That God would accept them. That God would love them. That God would pave the way to heaven. That God himself would make the stairway to heaven. Not something you have to construct, but something that's constructed by the Messiah. I mean, how cool is that? That the Messiah constructs the way for us to get to the Father. That's what the Messiah does. He is the ladder. He is the way to the Father. He is the way, the truth, and the life. I mean, very cool, right? I mean, already in those first few verses, there's a lot there just to work on. Is the joy of the Lord really my strength? Is it really manifested in the rich overflowing of generosity through my poverty? Meaning I give out of what I don't even have, right? Meaning I give whatever I got. Does that remind you of Jesus talking about an old woman who's giving to the temple? And she gives out of her poverty, right? And this is what Jesus was talking about, that there was such joy in God that even the little that she had, she desired so much to honor God with it. And it's not like, hey, God, I'm just going to give you everything and go live on the street. No, that's not the idea that Jesus is getting at. But he's getting at the idea that everything she had was God's. And man, she understood that. And she had a heart to want to give. So cool. What's your tithe record like? What's your giving like? What's your giving just of you, of your talent, of your treasure, those things. Man, it's always like, whoa, that's where your, what is it? Where your heart is, there your treasure will be, or, also, where your heart is. For I can testify that they gave not only what they could afford, but far more. Wow. And they did it of their own free will. No one coerced them. It wasn't some church saying, hey, give, 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 hold up your checks. They begged us again and again for the privilege of sharing in the gift for the believers in Jerusalem. Man, they just wanted to give to those people in Jerusalem that were going through issues, going through persecution. They even did more than we had hoped, for their first action was to give themselves to the Lord and to us, just as God wanted them to do. They not only wanted to help out financially, but they were saying, hey, in what ways can we help out? Maybe we can make some food. Maybe we can do this. I love that when the church is doing that. Hey, in what way can we do this? What way can we help out? How can we assist? How can we encourage? Man, very cool. That's because the love of God was in their heart. They really understood the grace of God. If you really understand the grace of God, you will take your finances and you will use them for the kingdom. It is a sure sign of where you are at. No doubt about it. If you say, I don't use my finances to contribute to the fellowship or to, the ministries that I love or whatever, then you got to really check your heart to see what is your understanding of the grace of God in your life. How has the grace of God really impacted you to where now you, like God, want to give? God so loved the world, he gave. Is that really affecting me? Well, I don't really have much money. Well, that the Macedonians didn't either, but they had great joy in giving. They wanted to give everything, whatever they could. Hey, I got this laying around. Maybe I can give that. So it's not just financial, but it's, of course, time and treasure and, everything like that. I am not commanding you to do this, but I'm testing how genuine your love is by comparing it with the eagerness of the other churches. Man, I am testing you, Corinthians, to see if you are genuine in your love. And I'm comparing you to who? That other church that got it. They really got it. And I'm looking at you and saying, hey, where are you at? That kind of thing. And again, it's, what would Paul maybe say to us? Hey, I'm kind of testing you by the Macedonian church. What's your giving like? What are you invested in? We might say, well, I don't really give my finances, but I do give, my time and and I get that. And that could be, under the Lord. I get it. But sometimes it's an excuse to really not contribute financially to something that you've really are a part of, that's really blessing you and has invested in you and really has blessed you. And so sometimes we really have to search the heart. Here's my advice. It would be good for you to finish what you started a year ago. Last year, you were the first who wanted to give, and you were the first to begin doing it. Now you should finish what you started. Let the eagerness you showed in the beginning be matched now by your giving. Give in proportion to what you have. Whatever you give is acceptable if you give it eagerly, and give it according to what you have, not what you don't have, meaning give what you have. Don't go into debt, but, give it freely, and it says, and give according to what you have. And it says, of course, I don't mean your giving should make life easy for others and hard for yourselves. I only mean that there should be some equality. Right now you have plenty and can help those who are in need. Later they will have plenty and can share with you when you need it. In this way things will be equal. As the scriptures say, those who gather a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Man, he says, I want you guys to give eagerly. There's going to be a time where you guys are going to be in need, and you're going to have to trust the Lord. And the church is going to have, other churches are going to need to help you. But right now, you are the ones that have money. So you are to feed into those other fellowships that need help. Man, I love this. You see, this is a way that, people were thinking about the churches at large, right? Not just their own personal congregation, but they were thinking about the churches out there, right? The people out there. and like Patty's saying in the comment corner, those villages out there, those people out there, those other needs, that kind of thing. We have our needs, and that's important, and we're ministering and feeding into people in our communities, and that's great, and we want to invest in that. But we want to also never neglect the church body at large and the different needs. And so I love it. Sometimes we never want to be people in need, right? And, the Corinthian church probably was like scared by what Paul's saying. I don't want to give so much that I find myself in need, because then what's going to happen then? We love to like pack a bunch of money, in a bank account and rely on that, because that's kind of become security for us. And Paul's saying, hey, when you give so much, you might not have any more, but you know what? In your need, there will be another way God will use another church to help, meaning the people of God. When I say church, I mean the people of God, to help and assist you then. It's really a life of relying on God and His gift, His kindness to work through people. Man, that's going to be really tough. Do I receive help well? Or do I not want to receive any help at all? I want to be self-sufficient. Man, that self-sufficiency is what I think us Americans really are all about in a lot of ways. We want to be independent, self-sufficient in almost every way. It's very hard to break ourselves, I think, of that. I know for me anyway. It says, but thank God He has given Titus the same enthusiasm that I have. Titus welcomed your request that he visit you again. In fact, he himself was very eager to go and see you. So we are sending another brother with Titus. All the churches praise him as a preacher of the good news. He was appointed by the churches to accompany us as we take the offering to Jerusalem, a service that glorifies the Lord and shows our eagerness to help. So Titus was a guy who was used to visit the Corinthian church, kind of organize, administer this offering, this gift, financial gift that was going to go to Jerusalem, to the church at need. I don't know if I'm a very reliable guy like Titus. I mean, I want to be, but that's what Titus was. He was a guy that they could rely on. He was faithful, available, teachable. He wasn't prideful. He didn't lack submission. He was a guy who really wanted to come underneath in rank, really help out the situation, that kind of thing. He wasn't this pompous guy who had it all together, it sounds like. It sounds like he was just a dude who was very faithful to serving, man, which is awesome. It says it's a service that glorifies the Lord and shows the eagerness to help, our eagerness to help. It says we are traveling together to guard against any criticism for the way we are handling the generous gift. There's an accountability there, really, with their financial gifts that are going to be brought to Jerusalem. It's not just Paul taking it, but it's other people. And he's talking about the integrity of that union of people that are taking this gift. Do I have that kind of integrity financially? Am I able to be trusted with money or not? Well, it says we are careful to be honorable before the Lord, but we also want everyone else to see that we are honorable. Man, we do it because we don't want to cause anybody to stumble. We're wanting to be honorable people. Just reminds me that, if there's things that are secretive in the background, no one's knowing, no one knows about this part of my world, no one knows anything, it's like, is that really honorable? The accountability that Paul's talking about is something to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. And that's really important in my life is that something that's happening. It's not that you don't have a flaw, but do people know you got the flaw? Are you open about your life? Are you open about the good, the bad, the ugly, the stuff, the whatevers? Are you open about things? Are you willing to be accountable? Are you willing to have accountability? That means investment. That means closeness. That means that kind of thing. But if you're in the background, right, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing my thing, but no one knows about it. But man, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it. But no one knows about it. There's not much. You're not being honest there. And Paul says, hey, I'm trying to avoid that. with Titus being with me, with other people being with me, and taking this gift over to Jerusalem. So it's something to really look at in our own life too, right? What are those things that no one else knows about, right? But we just, we do it. And it says, we are also sending with them another of our brothers who has proven himself many times and has shown on many occasions how eager he is. I love that. Eager to serve. Boy, these people are eager to do it, eager to go for it, eager to get involved. He is now even more enthusiastic because of his great confidence in you. If anyone asks about Titus, say that he is my partner who works with me to help you. And the brethren with him have been sent by the churches, and they bring honor to Christ to show them your love and prove to all the churches that are boasting about you is justified. So Paul says, man, I want other people to see about your change, that you guys have changed position. That even though you were mad at me and you were bummed because there was a discipline in the church that you did not like, and you didn't like the words I shared with you guys because you thought it was okay. You thought it was good. You thought it was fine. You were listening to other people who said it was okay, and, you don't like, you didn't like my position on this. But now you guys have changed your position. You've repented, and there's been repentance with the person who was disciplined. And I want the other brothers and sisters who are ministering with me to see that as well. That this is known, your wonderful turn of position, your change, because we love you and we're invested in you and we've been invested in you. And so Paul once again just kind of tugs on their strings, right? Their hearts, with this kind of, hey, to show the people that are with me your love, and prove your love. Prove it by your wonderful generosity. Prove it by your heart to give, even out of your poverty, even though the Corinthian church was more wealthy. Prove the change in your life by your receiving of those that come from me, that are part of my ministry, the ministry that I'm a part of. Don't despise the leadership, that I'm with, that I'm bringing, but instead embrace them and show your love. Wow. Boy, there's a lot of relevant things in there, that's for sure. It really kind of always goes at us. What is how has the grace of God really affected my life? Is it really seen in, the way I think about my leadership, the way I think about those that are over me spiritually, my spiritual leaders? Where's my heart in relation to them? The Corinthian church at one point was bitter towards Paul, bummed at Paul, angry at Paul, thinking he's, lame, thinking he's not wise, thinking he doesn't know what he's talking about, kind of thing. All kinds of stuff. And man, that hurt Paul. That was hard for Paul to deal with. And it's beautiful to see that there's been a change in the Corinthian church, and Paul is wanting to have them prove that change through their receiving of Titus and the other ministers that come from Paul. So man, a very cool devotion. Again, a lot of really relational things that are talked about. Those really nuanced relationships that we have. But I do love this chapter because it talks a lot about giving. And I think that's cool because it's something that really always tugs at my heart. What is my really giving about? Do I really desire to give? If not, why? And it really makes me think about, what I do with my, time, talent, treasure. So take care. Have a great day. Okay. Bye-bye.